Hey everybody, I'm Jeffrey Stansfield, the ringmaster of EsportsCircus. Thank you for joining me on another edition of the Freak Show from EsportsCircus. And I have a fantastic panel of exciting women who are going to talk to us about some diversity issues, maybe some issues about what it means like to challenge and strive and survive in this day and age, not just necessarily in the gaming industry, but in the corporate environment and in as business people, not just business women, but as business people. So I'd like to introduce them and maybe have them introduce themselves. First, I want to start with Steffi Bao. Why don't you talk us about who you are, what you do, and where you're going?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Steffi Bao. First of all, thank you, Jeff, for having me on this panel. And I am actually a 3-time former women motocross world champion. So I used to race motorcycles for a living. And yes, and it was incredibly interesting because very much a male-dominated industry. So I got myself into a position where I needed to show the world that women can do it. So I did that. And then after that, my career in racing was done. I moved into the business side of things. And long story short, I'm now involved with esports, and I opened up a company. It's called Init Esports, where we really focus on bringing more diversity and inclusion. And also, we are 3 co-founders, and we are all 3 female. So, yes, that's in a nutshell about me and my company.
That's great. Maria, why don't you tell me about yourself? What are you about?
Hi there, everyone. Excited to be here sharing this space with you. I'm co-founder and CEO of Gamer Safer, and we're building technology to make online games and esports platforms safer and positive for everyone. My background is in social impact. I am a gamer and I'm a mother of 2 passionate gamers, so the way I connect with this industry is from many touch points. And I'm also working for a couple of organizations promoting diversity and inclusion in technology. So that's where I come from.
That's very cool. And I know that you and Steffi are good friends. You've known each other for a while. Yes. So it's like, and we just got to finish with Latina month. It was this last month. We actually hosted a big event called Latinas in Hollywood, actually. So it was a very big event here. It was sponsored by Google. We were broadcasting from them. So Shelley, tell me about yourself. What is Shelley about?
Okay, well, I'm Shelley Lee. I'm one of the owners and vice president of Fully Loaded Electronics. And we do video game systems loaded with games and ready to play, primarily for children's hospitals. But we're also in the esports area, renting out gaming consoles and gaming PC rigs to be used in tournaments. And we also help supply gaming centers. We also work with hotels, libraries, all kinds of areas. Any place video games are being used in a public setting, that's where we are. So my husband and I started the business in our garage about 12, 13 years ago, and it has been an interesting ride being a woman in this space and seeing it change over the years.
Can relate to that.
Yeah. So you're a woman. So Shelley, you're a woman co-founded with obviously a man who's your husband. So what is that dynamic like? What is it like? I mean, what is that like working side by side with your husband in a business? Is that give? I mean, we have maybe a woman vice president and a president who are not married, but now you have you're married to a husband. Does that bring any challenges as far as if it is working in a diverse market?
It did early on. Before we had figured out this is your area, this is my area. There were definitely things for us to work out. But my husband does kind of the overarching things. He is more of a gamer than I am. So he understands, even though I know more about gaming than your average bear, my husband really knows more about the gaming stuff than I do, and then I serve as a bridge to our customer base that doesn't know as much about gaming. And so I've led the way in kind of translating the gamer speak for, maybe you're a nurse in a hospital and you don't know how to set up a gaming system for kids to use there when they really need that entertainment and distraction. Or, maybe you're running a youth center for kids and you want to provide gaming as something for kids to do on a rainy day, but you don't know how. I'm able to translate that from kind of gamer speak into what people in a public setting need to be hearing about how to keep the gaming console safe, how to make it so they're not online if a public space doesn't want kiddos to have access to online or have exposure to, players online and, in some settings. So that has become more of my role, and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the opportunity to make gaming accessible in these public spaces where they might not have been without the bridge that we're able to provide.
That very, very cool. So Steffi, what is, if you were to give, what's the biggest piece of advice you can get if someone were to want to start a diversity initiative, kind of like what you're doing? What is one of the biggest pieces of advice you would give a young woman or anybody in a diversity aspect?
Well, I will say just go for it. That's the first thing. So surround yourself by people with different background and different experiences, because it's the diversity that make things happen. In my personal experience, we really make an effort to getting people to work in our company that they are from all different background, because there is always room to learn. And if you surround yourself just by white people, then you're gonna leave out a very part of the conversation. So it's, to me, by experience, it's very important to bring different people in. So that's my number one thing. Look around, don't be shy, and keep asking, the right question, and bring people on board that can represent a different community and different demographics.
Very, very cool. So, Maria, obviously all three of you are brilliant women, but there's another part of diversity other than female. There's different cultures. Steffi is Italian, and you're Latina. So, what are some of the challenges that not taking apart the female part, but what are some of the challenges that we're facing as far as you as a Latina running in this culture, especially in such a fractured society as we're just getting out of, or just in the middle of, whatever we're.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is that I don't see a lot of representation in many spaces that I am talking right now. So when you look from an investment perspective, when you're negotiating with customers, or when you're talking, like in all those panels that I am attending, I don't see as many Latinas, and somehow it creates, it requires me more effort to make people relate somehow. So that's why one of my theory of change is making those spaces more open and friendly to diverse founders, so they can found more companies that will hire more diverse founders, moving this wheel, and bringing more diversity to the table. And that's the same thing that I'm trying to do inside games, by bringing our technology to gaming platforms, making games spaces that are engaging and positive for everyone. So based on these experiences and the identities we have, we all want to be embraced as we are. So that's the kind of world I'm trying to create. But I don't focus as much in this challenge. What I try to focus more is finding the opportunities and the people that are convinced that I am the right person to do things, that want to partner with me. And by doing that, I think I'm driving a lot of change, because if we stick only with the problems, I think the conversations kind of get stuck at many times. So I'm trying to focus more who are those people that want to help me to move the needle, to change things, and then partner with them and helping them to succeed. And by helping them to succeed, I will succeed as well.
That's wonderful. So the next, one of the things that I also want to is so maybe Shelley can answer this question. So you go into a company and you want to start a diversity initiative. How do you get people to jump on board? I mean, everyone looks at it. It's like our government is saying, "Oh, we're going to stop all diversity training in corporate offices, all that stuff." Is there a pushback for starting diversity training? And do you see? And how do you talk to your staff about maybe doing that?
Thankfully, we haven't had any issues in that area. We have a very diverse staff, and all the places I've worked in the past have been very diverse. I think a lot of it comes from leadership from the top, and if you have leaders at the top who are diverse themselves, then hiring tends to follow, and hiring individuals who are who are diverse themselves. Thankfully, where we are now as a company and the places I've been in the past have, because we've had strong leadership. My husband's Korean American. He knows what it's like to be in a minority in situations. So he's always conducted himself and run the business with that in mind. And our hiring has followed the lead, that he and I want. We want a diverse workplace. We want to hire people from diverse backgrounds. In a previous life, I worked in politics. I'm in Washington State. We have 2 female senators, and I had the pleasure of working for both of them. So when you're in these wonderfully diverse places with these great leaders, it all it does trickle down. But it's a fight to get there in the first place. I worked on Senator Cantwell's campaign 20 years ago when she was first elected and took down our senator at the time, Slade Gorton, and those things aren't easy, but once they are achieved, it's really beautiful to see the kind of the outflow from there.
Very, very cool. So, Steffi, you're obviously starting in your business. You're starting really leading with more diversity, in the industry. So, what are you doing what does that mean? What are you doing to inspire diversity initiatives in other companies and maybe your company?
Well, I'm a true believer that you need to lead by example. So creating role models is incredibly important because then people can relate to it. And because of it, we are a startup, but we are just coming out with an event that we launched a couple of days ago, which it touches all of these points. Like we created this event, it's called Raise Me. And in Raise Me, we were able to get 6 professional female athletes that they were and they are on top of their game in sport, right? And from all different backgrounds. We have an athlete, Hope Solo, that she is a mom. Then we have Ariel Power, she is a person of color. Then we have Oksana Master, she is a disabled person, she doesn't have legs. So in another Madison Hammond, she is from soccer, and she's the first Native American woman to ever play on a soccer team professionally. And then also we have Madison Packer, that she represents the LGBTQ community. So we figured out a way to bring those very important people to get together and play a different sport, and we did that digitally. So Race Me is exactly that. We have these 6 athletes that will play a card game for charity and to bring forward the message about diversity, inclusion, and equity. And the gaming world is embracing that as well. Twitch is going to be our partner for the event. So it's just like by like I said, leading by example. When the idea came to fruition, what we really liked it was the fact that we led with the message, say, hey, we want to do something that really resonate with a lot of people and should resonate with more people, and everybody say, what can we do to be part of it? So that's the beauty of it. When you have a good message and you are able to create the community, then the work becomes a little bit easier.
Very cool. That's inspiring. So taking on from what Steffi said, Maria, if somebody comes to you and says, I want to help in diversity in my company, or I want to come to, what do you tell them? What are some of the things you can tell them? This is where you should start. This is how you should do it. Maybe you can give some advice.
I think one of the things that Steffi said, you need to lead by example. So the leadership team must be totally committed to diversity and inclusion. Because sometimes I feel a lot of companies, they have all these nice guidelines about diversity, but what does that truly mean in terms of actions? So that kind of commitment, it's important. And then how you are creating a plan for people from diverse backgrounds to thrive in their careers in your company. That's the thing that most of companies are lacking now. So how someone that is joining your company is progressing year over year and growing and having the support they need from their point of view, not from your point of view, your word, your background, to thrive and to grow in your company. Another thing that I think it's important is to understand the gaps that you have. So understanding how your employees see diversity and inclusion and how they're taking action to support, those diverse other diverse employees. And that requires a lot of work and community. I think when we're trying to empower those professionals to feel safe and encouraged to thrive, it's important that you build a community for them. So how you, as a company, with your message, with your actions, with your culture, you are encouraging them to thrive. So those are the things that I believe that are super important.
Absolutely, they are important. Shelley, your company supplies consoles and PCs to hospitals, and these are a lot of times they're younger people who may have disabilities, may have learning disability, severe learning disabilities or physical disabilities, going through some surgeries that weaken them and may not have them give full access to a lot of their things. Like one of Steffi's partners who's without limbs. So how do you guys work with the hospitals and maybe how do your consoles maybe help with some of these people?
And so we're really pleased to carry the Xbox Adaptive Controller that helps patients and players of different ability levels be able to interact with the gaming system. We're actually able to program the different knobs and buttons on it so that it meets the abilities of the player so that they can play games. We've identified what games work best in that format, so we're able to recommend to hospitals, okay, for this situation we recommend this controller, this configuration for the adaptive controller, and we think these games are going to work best. Because some games do work better with the adaptive controller than others. In addition to the Xbox adaptive controller, there are other accessories out there for people who are differently abled, so that we are able to meet all kinds of different needs with the items that are out there. And we're really happy to be, again, we're kind of that bridge between the healthcare professionals or other people out in the world. We also work with Make-A-Wish. So if Make-A-Wish has a wish kiddo who wants to be able to play a certain video game, we're able to guide them and say, okay, these are the accessories you're going to need to make this possible for this kiddo, and we can configure it for them so when it arrives, it's ready to play. The parents don't need to have any frustration about how to get the system set up. It's just ready for the kiddo to enjoy. So there's, all these ways that we can make these gaming systems playable by anyone. And beyond that, there are even therapeutic benefits. So you might have heard of the term TheraWii. You can really use the Wii handsets, the Wii Joy-Cons, to enable people to do physical therapy, occupational therapy. There are a few TheraWii centers across the country in different hospitals, so that when people are injured and they're recovering from an injury or a surgery, they can use video games to make exercising more exciting. We've had physical therapists that we've worked with use the wands for the PS4 VR, and you can play Fruit Ninja, but they call it Foot Ninja because you can actually use Velcro to attach the wands to the patient's legs, and they can lay on their back, and they can work on core strength, they can work on using their leg muscles. There are a lot of really neat and creative applications for diversity as well as for therapeutic uses for video games.
That's incredible. Yeah, I used to work with a hospital, and we used to work with cancer kids. I used to the City of Hope and stuff like that. And some of these kids really, when they're able to really do things, it really brightens them up because they're just sitting in the hospital beds all day. So that's incredible what you guys are doing. So I remember back when I would go to an arcade. I went to an arcade once after, and I went to this game Street Fighter, and it was all these guys. There was a ninja guy, and there was a big giant wrestler guy, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, there was this cool ninja chick. And she was fantastic, and it was like the game was so crowded, because there was the first time that there was a female player in a game, and now we've got almost every game has a couple of characters that are female. Most of them are still male. So Steffi, are you guys doing anything to maybe talk with some hey, and not just female, but maybe I know that a lot of characters are more comic-y type characters. They're not really physical humans, but what are we doing to maybe reach out to some of these corporate people and say, hey, this is great, you got the 10% women, women characters, but 10%. There's not 10% women players. There's some big people out there, like Valkyrie, and who are these fantastic women streamers. What are you doing to maybe reach out to some of these companies?
Well, I do have a little story first that I want to share.
Okay.
Which is I have been a character in video games. Because of my career as a motocross racer. Back when I was racing, this was in the year 2000, EA Sport was making the video game for the sport, and I am the first one to be as a female representative of my sport into a video game. So that was pretty cool, because again, a male-dominated sport that took in the step to put a female athlete in it. This back, 20 years ago. 1999, 2000, I thought it was going to be a super cool thing. So now that we are at this level and we see a lot of characters, even if they are from game that are more fantasy game, there are characters in there, and the customization, it's much easier. Again, I work mostly in sim racing, so it's mostly like car drivers, but you can do the female character and it can look like yourself, that you are the racer. So it's very good. I think, like you were saying, Jeff, now the next step is to continue the conversation with the publisher of the game and include the people that might have disability. Like, I don't see why not somebody that is on the wheelchair can be, also a car driver, like in a sim racing. Why not? We can do it digitally, and people can also race cars, if they have a disability. So why not include it in the video game? I think that would be the next step. But again, it takes about leading by example. It takes people like such as ourselves, to speak out about it, be in front of media and talk about it, and then little by little, we can tilt that needle.
That's it. Yeah, that's great. Absolutely, Maria.
Yeah, one of the things that I believe is if we have more creators that are diverse, we won't spend as much energy trying to ask people to bring more diversity to all those spaces. So one of my theories is that if we have more founders from diverse backgrounds, if we have more designers, developers from diverse backgrounds, we won't be having this conversation with this frequency. That's my theory.
That's a very good idea. I do we do a lot of schools like Full Sail University and LA Film School who have VFX departments, and there's not a lot of VFX. I mean, there are a lot of VFX women out there, but not enough. And I think that's one of the things. I mean, you look at Call of Duty, which is the game that this one of this events is announcing. You look at all the characters in Call of Duty, and you really can't tell who they are because they're so padded up with armor. But all the voices, all the general voices are male voices. There's no it doesn't, none of the characters look like a female. I mean, when I was in the Army, even though that everyone was padded up, you could tell a female than a male. And there's a lot of great females who have done great things and become great military and in combat even. And there's a lot of women in the new Army museum that they just launched last week, and so there's a lot of women being with their stories being told there. So I think that there's a lot of it's easy when you go to Fortnite and you can create a female character, but in some of the really tough combat games, there's no reason why there can't be some female characters in there that I don't see too much. So if someone comes to you and says, where do I start to get resources? Where do I start to resource about diversity initiative to start something? Are there any places to start, Maria?
Wow, there are many spaces.
I think we lost Maria.
Start. Oops. Yeah.
I got you.
I think I lost connection. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. In this digital world, this is what we're all about.
Yeah, I think the most practical thing you could do is find someone from a diverse background that is working in a company that is, succeeding in this area to connect with, because most of the good work in this area is not about reading nice guidelines. It's about having experience and have the heart and the mind in the right place to implement things. So there is a bunch of organizations giving, orientations and even workshop. I was in a workshop this week that Stanford organized to support organizations that wants to help Black and underestimated founders to progress. So Stanford has a good, database of documents. Latinas in Tech has also. Google has launched a couple. So there are many organizations providing guidelines and workshops. But I think it's the living experience that makes a difference, and having a safe space to ask questions, especially when you are not from a diverse background. Sometimes people feel intimidated to ask things, and that leads to implement things that are not aligned with those values. So I think finding those people where you trust, where you feel safe to build, it's important.
Okay. Well, that's a great answer. That's really inspiring. So, now, Shelley? How have you seen some of diversity change in like the last 5 or 10 years? In that, have you seen some good changes, or?
I have. A lot of the charities that we work with, that we've worked with for years, have hired more female employees than maybe they had in the beginning. A lot of the gaming charities were originally founded by men, and over time, I've noticed that they seem to be making a deliberate effort to hire women, which has been really nice. It's been really fun to not be as much the only woman when I go to events. So that's been really nice. And then just as far as the games go, when we're out scouting games to include on these gaming systems that are out in these public places, I do feel like I'm seeing a wider variety of games available. So like at the last PAX West we were at, and we were meeting some of the indie game developers. There was a game for seniors. It was a role playing game where you go through as a character, you're an old lady and you're trying to find love, and you're meeting all these old men. And I thought, how great! And I keep looking for an opportunity to include that game on something that we do for a senior center. And there were more LGBTQ plus games where maybe it's a role play game and your character can be gender fluid, or you're able to pick your identity and then play as that identity within the game. So that's been a really exciting thing to see. And as a company that buys a lot of games and helps support those games being played out in these public places, that's a fun thing to see and to support from where we're sitting.
That's good. So Steffi, going out, one of the things that I kind of see a little bit sometimes is corporations, putting out diversity as an initiative, but really just to kind of pander to the public relations kind of thing, not really their heart and soul behind it, but just doing it because it's great for publicity. It's great to put on the little sticker, stuff like that. Do you see that a little bit more? I do see that sometimes.
I think there is some of that, because some company that they are run probably by older white men, they feel like that they need to fit in, so they kind of doing it in that way. But I feel that more and more is becoming very authentic. Like the company, the big colossal company that they are supporting this message, they are actually believing in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the good change that we should focus on. And, eventually, the one that they are doing it just because it's the right thing to do, they eventually going to get a new leadership team. And that new leadership team will do it in the correct way, not only because it is the right way, but also because they believe in it.
Very cool.
Yeah. Also, it's not sustainable. If you have a strategy that says something and you don't act accordingly, it's just not sustainable. The community, your employees, the ecosystem will just find out and call out.
So, one of the things that we see, we go to a lot of colleges and we work with a lot of colleges to set up collegiate esports teams. And one of the things that we see is that some of the kids will either play in smaller cliques or they'll play in their dormitory. And when they're either alone or in their small little cliques, the players tend to let some of the language and mannerisms slip into the not okay area. A lot of schools say, "Oh, well, we try to talk to them, but we don't. There's nothing we can do when some kid's sitting on there and somebody shoots him and he says, I don't even want to say what they're going to say, but you know what they say. What is your thoughts on that, Maria?
So one of the things that we are trying to do at Gamer Safer is to bring more accountability to the gaming space. So we created what we call this digital gaming ID, where we verify and authenticate players before they join a match. And with that, we are kind of empowering gaming platforms to take actions if a player, no matter their age, are not acting according to their community guidelines. So the way the industry is settled today is if a user is bullying or harassment or racist and somehow the company banned them, 5 minutes later they can create a new account under a new email and rejoin the game. So with our ID, we will empower gaming companies to make users accountable for their actions. And I do believe when players realize that they can somehow lose the chance to play the game they love because they're misbehaving or because they're not follow guidelines, they will think twice before, saying things that can significantly affect the other player. So that's the the technology and the social impact side of our business.
Well, that's good. That's key. Yeah, because we need to keep accountability and tracking. Especially, you get all these kids and they tend to smurf and this and that, and it's just it can really ruin the game for everybody, and and it's just it just makes it. But yeah, so that's definitely cool. So Shelley, so we've talked about a lot of stuff here. What do you think are some of the newer trends in acknowledging? What are the new trends in acknowledging some of the diversity aspects, not just for women and not just for disabled or LGBT? What are some of the new trends that people are looking at in diversity you could see?
Well, definitely in hiring and making sure that the hiring that's happening at companies reflects the company's values and the values of the leadership.
Okay. So let's see. I've gone through a lot of my questions. So about so Maria, you talked about how GamerSafe is identifying people and really creating this tracking to do that. So let's say. So tell me about some of the things that GamerSafe is really doing, how it all structures. What do you guys really do? Do we lose you again? I think you froze, Maria. All right. So let's. So, so we touched a little bit. So Shelley touched a little bit on diversity aspects of the LGBT community, which is hit back a lot. I mean, women are kind of pretty well, seen in the diversity areas, but you get the LGBT community is kind of still really suffering because you get companies like Hobby Lobby who says we're a Christian organization and we don't believe in man and women and you get people who says if you're born a certain gender, that's your gender. What do you say to companies like that? How do you think what are some ways that we can look into that aspect of diversity? Steffi.
Well, for me, I don't get around with this company. I just don't have even a conversation starting with this company. So there is never like a point that it's an issue. So, I mean, in my personal belief, but also in business, if a company puts themselves in a box, then they're gonna just take the reward of being in that box, or not the reward. In this particular case, it's like they're not going to be, part of what the majority of the people feel and believe. So for me, it's just like, as a business, we just don't even interact with them. So we don't look at the bad stuff. We just don't even consider it.
So you don't want to fight the hard fights and maybe go after some of these companies and try to show them the error of the way, show them that this is a big economic. I mean, I understand they believe what they believe, and religion is a very hard taskmaster sometimes. But
I think in reality, you just have to again lead by example, and if they are stuck in their way of thinking, they can be in that way of thinking, and you just have to do whatever is good for you. So I don't think going and fight them, it's beneficial for anybody. So it's if they feel this kind of company that being more inclusive and being more diversity will generate more business for them, then you see that it will change a little bit. But then you're still gonna have the one that they are very focused on their own belief, and they are gonna just attract the people of that type of belief. But not to go political, but we live in a country that is very, very well divided for those similar reasons, and what can you do? It's not that, that there is no way to have a conversation. There is no way to have a conversation with the other side. You can try and try and try, but, the people that are stuck in a way, they just believe that that's the right way. For me, I listen, and I take in consideration, but if you want to live in just one box, that's not how I live and my companies run. We are inclusive. Everybody comes in. We care about diversity. We care about equity. We really care that everybody should be paid the same, no matter what gender or disability or whatever. So, yeah, for me, it's just like that. I don't really want to waste the time to go fight somebody that is not willing to listen.
Okay. That's a fair argument. I'm a little bit of a fighter myself. I like to say, guys, this is not right. But I get it. Sometimes these people just will never listen, and that's why the country is in the aspect that we're at, because our leaders have really taught us, shown us by example that they can do things like pander, like, oh, I'm gonna nominate a woman judge, but I don't really believe in that, kind of thing. It's just, there's, I think that a lot of times, you can tell what someone says, even if they do little things that move the needle a little bit. It's still, you can tell what they believe when they. It's like, there's a great game. It's a funny game. It's called Dump Trump, and I'm not trying to get political here, but I've been a Republican all my life, but and it's all about stopping this guy named Donnie from grabbing all the pussycats around the city. It's a weird game, but it just goes because there's so many. This country is just so fractured, and we're so argued, and we can't move forward because everyone's arguing with each other and staying on their in their lane, and they're not willing to look at any other lane except for the lane they're in. So
I believe Jeff, that is all about evolution.
Yeah.
Things are changing, things are getting better, and who doesn't embrace, good and being respectful to other, or just being a good person is gonna just get left behind at the end.
That could be.
That's how it's gonna be.
50 years ago, you weren't really a person. You were, in the United States, 50 years ago, you were, I mean, it's just amazing how, and 50 years ago was not that long ago, and I mean, it's just, amazing. Some of the one of the movies that when we helped produce was a movie called Suffragette. That's an incredible movie. That if you haven't seen it out there, you should check it out. I think it's on Netflix. I think it's on also Netflix or Amazon. It's an incredible one. It really tells you about the suffragettes all over the world, and it really takes place in England, and talks to you about that kind of strife that they did. And we did all the technical equipment for that. A lot of that, well, most of the technical equipment for a lot of that movie. So it was a really good movie. But it's amazing how far we've come, and we've still got we've got 4 billion years before the sun explodes. So maybe in 4 billion years, hopefully, we'll make a lot more progress. So if so when someone comes into your company, Shelley, and says I want to do this and I want to do that, but I don't I don't really cotton to that, to all this. Do you? I mean, but they're a really good person. They really do a great job. Maybe their sales, they close a lot of deals, but they're not really sold on diversity. Do what do you try to change that person? Like Steffi said, maybe I don't. Maybe if it's too much, I just don't. Or what do you do with that kind of person?
Well, we don't talk about politics in the workplace. I don't want us having arguments there about things like that. But I don't think I think a person whose beliefs, if they don't align with our company beliefs, then that person probably shouldn't be in a hiring position. So, if they were doing great in the position they were in, but their beliefs don't really align with ours as far as hiring goes, then that wouldn't be a good fit. So we would definitely make sure that we have people in spots where they can be productive and happy, but we wouldn't put ourselves in a place where we had any conflicts like that.
Okay. So, talking about so if somebody comes in and says to Steffi, so someone comes in and says, I really want to, I really want to find out more. Well, I already asked Maria that question, more about resources, but if somebody comes in and they don't, and they've been in college, they come in, they're brand new, they don't know anything about really diversity aspects. What's a number of ways that you can teach them about this? Teach them about that. What are some of the substantive differences that you can say? Okay, this is where you need to look at to really challenge yourself to really get into this. I know nothing about it.
It's a tough question in the way that you direct it, because most of the time when you hire people and somebody comes into your company, you kind of screen them. So just like Shelley was saying, if they already don't align with your values and how your company is run, they're not going to be a candidate. So there is not going to be a lot of teaching at that level. However, if you ended up being a company owner and then go to meetings, with other companies, and happen, in this networking place, there are people that they might not be aligned necessarily with the diversity and inclusion aspect of businesses, and that could be an option to start to educate them. And in reality, it depends how your industry is, but it's everywhere. So there is not really that much education unless you live under the rock. Nowadays that there are different people in the world, and therefore the number one thing is just to be respectful and show equal respect to anybody around you. So that it's the suggestion will say, if somebody comes, they never experienced that because comes from a community that it's very niche and wants to explore, that's actually already indicates there is a person that sees that there is diversity out there. So they're going to already be more susceptible on learning about it. So there is not really a change of the mentality. You're either there, in your evolution, or you're not.
Okay, so actually, what I was kind of more getting at is what are maybe I should rephrase it. So, what are some maybe easy steps to start replicating a program in a company? So somebody comes to you and says I have no really experience in this. Is there an easy step that I can start taking? What are some easy steps that I can start taking to initiate a program in my company?
I think there are different things that can be done based on the size of the company. If you have a very big company, then you have an HR department, and the HR department should be really set and in tune on how to do this type of training. If you are a small company, you kind of wearing all different hats every day. So you need to lead by example. So some example are just being a decent human being. So, if you are you have that kind of way of seeing life, it becomes actually fairly easy to want to involve anybody, because you see the person for their quality and not for what they look like.
Yeah.
Make
Okay.
sense?
That makes sense. That's very good. So Shelley, someone, let's say I walk into you and says, Shelley, give me some advice. I have 20% of my company is women. I have maybe 10% black people, and I have a couple of people who are of different gender orientations. What percentage do I need to be? Do I need to be 100% diversity? Do I need to have no men? What advice would you give someone if they said, "What's the percentage?" Because I hear that a lot. I have 20% women.
I've never thought about that before, but to me, a company, I think it's good if a company reflects their community. So if you look at your local city, county, state, do the demographics where you work reflect that? And if they don't, you could put on, your new hiring things, so-and-so encouraged to apply. Like we like hiring seniors. We like hiring veterans. We've noticed we have holes there. And so we will put on our job posts, so-and-so are encouraged to apply. And we try to make sure that diverse groups know that they're welcome and encouraged to apply, and we're looking for people that fit our needs, that also help us be a good reflection of the community around us.
Oh, that's very good. That's really good. So, I guess we'll end a little bit with maybe just the last comments and maybe remarks from both of you. Maybe we'll start. Steffi, you want to tell me about if there's anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to say, you wanted to bring up, or talk, a little about?
Yeah, I think we just covered a lot of interesting point, and hopefully people that will listen to this will take some advice and try to apply it into their own business and way of living. I would just like to say that we started this project, and it's called Raise Me. I touched base earlier a little bit. I think it's going to be very cool, because having a big community, push for those kind of value, it is exciting. So I just suggest everybody to watch it. It's going to be on Twitch on December 12th on the Init Esports account. So just have a chance to come over, watch it, and see what a bunch of women getting together are able to do.
That's great. And Shelley, what about you?
Oh, I think I would just say that as far as diversity goes, I think everybody should be looking for ways in which they can kind of be the bridge. Our company is kind of the bridge between people who understand games and people who don't, but want to make them available. I think we can all, in little ways, or even big ways, depending on where you are, look for ways to kind of be that bridge to make sure that there's more diversity and inclusion.
That's great. So Shelley, Sheila, why don't you tell us a little bit more about how we can get in contact with your company and with you, so we can come with your website and stuff like that. Give us your contact information.
You bet. Our website is fullyloadedelectronics.com, and all of our contact information is there. I'm on LinkedIn. I love making new friends. So if anybody wants to be connected or have any questions about our products and services, I am happy to help.
That's great, and we're definitely going to use your services when we put on events, because I'll tell you, I may be okay with the racks of PCs that we have, but when we put on our events, we want consoles. We're definitely going to be talking with you guys, and because I think it's going to be a really big cost savings for us, rather than hauling a bunch of I don't want to buy 10 X. I would love to own 10 Xbox and 10 PS5s and all that, but I'd never get any work done, so I'd rather rent them from you. So, Steffi, why don't you do me a favor? Also, talk to us how we can get in contact with you. But if you also, because we lost Maria a little bit, but if you could maybe tell us about her, because you know her.
Yes, I do know Maria, and we are going to start to work together in some of my events, and use GamerSafe. And yes, Maria's site is gamersafe.com, so you can go there and learn about it. And as far as me, our company is Init esports.com. On the website, you'll find out what we do. But also, if you want to follow us on social media, we are on all the social media as Init Esports. And then myself, I'm on LinkedIn. So feel free to find me there, and we can talk and share experience. And I'm always willing to make new friends.
Well, that's wonderful. And that's in it as an INIT, right?
Correct.
That's very cool. So, okay. So, guys, check those out. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this panel. We just had a little panel before this, which is a technology panel. We're going to have some more panels coming up. It's going to be great. I am Jeffrey Stansel. I'm the ringmaster of the Esports Circus, my golden coat on. And thank you for joining me on another edition of The Freak Show. We're going to be having more shows coming up. So stay tuned for those. I'm Jeffrey Stansfield of the Esports Circus. Our contact information is esportscircus.com. And just like Steffi, we're on all the platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Timblr, whatever those. I don't know what all. I have this brilliant woman that does all my social media, and I don't even know half of what she does. So, but she does a good job. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jeffrey Stansfield, the ringmaster of Esports Circus. We'll see you later. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.